Today I want to talk about the Red Wings, and I don't really talk about them too often on the channel, and obviously that's the case because there isn't really a reason to talk about them other than they are awful and are by far and away the worst team in the league. Heading into the year, I definitely had a little bit of optimism about the team. I figured they weren't going to be very good, that's just me being a realist, but I did at least think they were going to be a fun team to watch. And honestly, that's not the case, especially over the past couple of games. I've felt like it's a chore that I have to watch the Red Wings game. Like, I haven't even been looking forward to it at all. I thought even though I'd be watching Detroit lose, I'd get to see the young players thrive like Larkin, Mantha, and Bertuzzi, and they all relatively have for the most part, but now it sucks that Anthony Mantha went down with injury, but then when he went down, we called up Filip Zadina, and that gave me kind of new life for the season. I was like, okay, now I can watch the games and see how Filip Zadina plays. You know, I figured Jeff Blashill would play him with some other young talent, you know, some offensive guys, because that's what Filip Zadina is. He's an offensive player. But no, instead of putting him in a situation where he can thrive offensively playing with other talented offensive players, we have him stuck on the third line, centered by Frans Nielsen, who I believe makes the second most amount of money on the team, only behind Dylan Larkin, and that contract isn't ending anytime soon either. And Frans Nielsen has 1 assist in 25 games. He's just slow, he's not very good anymore, and we're kind of wasting Zadina's ice time playing with a guy like him. And then on the other wing, you do have Darren Helm, and I honestly don't mind him playing with Zadina because he's a quick player, he's very good on the forecheck, and you know, he can go in there, dig pucks out, and get them out to Zadina. But usually we haven't really saw that because when this line is on the ice, they're usually pinned in their own zone, just trying to stay alive out there and not give up a goal against. When right now there is a big opening on the wing of the first line beside Larkin and Bertuzzi, and we've been trying multiple players up there. I mean, last game it was Luke Glendening, albeit he did a pretty good job, and I am a fan of Glendening. He's a very hard-working guy, but more suited for like a bottom six checking forward role, not a first line winger role. So with Mantha injured and Zadina being in the NHL, why not just try him on the wing of the first line with Larkin and Bertuzzi, two guys who are offensive minded and are pretty good at generating scoring chances, instead of just sticking him on the third line? I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Zadina plays awful on the top line and Detroit doesn't have a good game and we lose? Who cares? This team has been losing every single game. We're on like a 9-game losing streak and things aren't getting any better at all. For the most part, these games aren't even fun to watch. It's just Detroit getting dominated. One last thing that has really been frustrating me over the past couple of games, and then I'm gonna get into some positives for the Red Wings, and I know there is actually some positives surrounding this team, but that is the power play. This first line power play unit can't even get the puck in the zone and set up, and Zadina is on that power play unit, so whenever we get a power play, I'm excited. I'm like, okay, maybe Zadina can get some shots here. But then if we do somehow miraculously, under a miracle, get it in the zone, we don't feed it to him. What was his first NHL goal last year, and his only NHL goal? I believe it was a one-timer on the power play against the Avalanche. Those are the situations that he can thrive in. He's an offensive guy. Give him chances to be an offensive player, not a checking line with Darren Helm and Frans Nielsen. So with all of that out of the way now, I know that's kind of the first time I've actually ranted a little bit on the channel, so let me know if you guys want to see more videos like this about some things I feel strongly about in the NHL. But now let's get into some positives, starting off with Anthony Mantha. When healthy and when on the ice this season, for the most part, I think it is safe to say that Mantha has been the best player on the Red Wings this season, and it's not just because he leads the team in points, or I believe he's tied with Bertuzzi, or he leads the team with goals. Whenever he gets the puck, he's dangerous out there, and that's something I definitely couldn't say about him last season. He always has his head up, he's looking to move it into the offensive zone, and one thing about him that I noticed is a huge change is he's always moving his feet. Over the past couple of years, we saw the talent, we saw how he can use his body and use his shot to score goals, but he wasn't really necessarily looking like the hardest worker out there. Sometimes over the past couple of years, he just looked downright lazy, you know, flybys, just, you know, tapping guys to get the puck away from. This year, he's going through guys, he's putting his shoulder down, he's going to the net, and that shows because he has had a great start to the season. And obviously I'm pretty upset that he got hurt because he definitely made these Red Wing games a lot easier to watch. So I've been very excited with his play this season, and obviously it makes me a lot more optimistic about the future of this team. The next bright spot I want to get to is Tyler Bertuzzi, and he had a pretty strong showing last year. I believe he scored 20 goals, had like 40 something points, and it looked like he could potentially be like a top 6 forward for the future of this team. But this year Bertuzzi has definitely taken it up a notch. You know, after last season, I thought, yeah, maybe he can be like a 50-point kind of grinder that can go out there, get under the other team's skin, you know, be a good player to complement the top guns on this team. But now I kind of look at him as one of the top young guns on this team. He's obviously a very important part to that top line of Larkin, Mantha, and himself, and is currently tied for the team lead in points with 23, tied with Anthony Mantha. He's having an amazing season, and this is another thing that kind of excites me because he's just yet another player that is going to be a big part of the future. Obviously, there is a lot of other bright spots as well with this team. Moritz Seider is playing fantastic down in the American Hockey League, and looks like by next season he's definitely going to be a solid top 4 defenseman for the Red Wings. We have Filip Hronek, who's playing like a top pairing defenseman, albeit he is definitely being overplayed and has kind of been thrown to the wolves to start the season. He's kind of been the only mainstay on that blue line that seems to change like the 6 guys that are out there every single night. That's another thing that really makes me mad. This blue line can't stay healthy, and if it is, one night the guy's in, one night a guy's healthy scratch, just all over the place. It's in shambles, but Filip Hronek has been the one reliable, consistent guy back there this year. But now let's talk a little bit about the guy who really gives me hope for this team moving into the future. And that person is their general manager, Steve Yzerman. Everybody knows how good of a job he did with the Tampa Bay Lightning, and I do have a lot of faith that he is eventually going to be able to direct this ship in the right direction. It's definitely not going to be easy. He's going to have a lot of waiting to do, you know, waiting for these awful contracts to come off the books, but we do have a couple of those expiring at the end of this year, so that'll give him a little bit more leeway to really make this roster his own. But I feel like he already has done a pretty solid job of doing that. He's made a lot of moves so far since coming in as Red Wings GM. His first move was bringing in Adam Ernie. We basically got him for free. I believe we only gave up like a late draft pick to bring him in, a young-ish player who Steve Yzerman knew from his time in Tampa Bay, so I like the move of bringing in maybe a potential top 9 forward for the future, albeit Adam Ernie hasn't been the greatest with the Red Wings so far, hasn't put up numbers at all, but that was never really his game anyways, and I'm confident that maybe one day he can be like a third-line checking forward for this team. Then obviously he took flyer on Brendan Perlini, traded away defensive prospect Alec Regula for him, and even though Perlini isn't putting up points, I've said this on the channel before, I feel like he has been playing relatively solid for the Wings, and you know, bringing in a former top draft pick who really just hasn't worked out with his current team for just like a B-level prospect, I don't really see too much risk in that move. And then obviously we had the Robbie Fabry trade. We brought in Robbie Fabry in exchange for Jacob De La Rose, and don't even get me started on Robbie Fabry. I could talk about this guy all day. I need to get a jersey of him soon because ever since coming to the Red Wings, he's been one of my favorite players on the team. He's so hardworking, he's great on the forecheck, he's very fast, and obviously has a lot of offensive upside. To start the season with the Blues, Fabry only had 1 goal in 9 games. That was his only point, and so far in 12 games with the Wings, he has 5 goals and 5 assists for 10 points. He's only 23 too, so he's definitely going to be a big part of the future, probably like a second line guy, but we needed that. We needed scoring depth behind that good top line. And honestly, I feel like the top 6 for the future is shaping up to be relatively decent. If Andreas Athanasiou can move back to center, that would definitely be cool too, but I feel like he's for the most part going to be a winger. We just need a center for that second line. Maybe a guy like Quentin Byfield, that would be unbelievable. Then we could have the Larkin, Mantha, and Bertuzzi first line, which was obviously very good when they were healthy playing together, and then you could have Robbie Fabry on the second line with like Byfield and Athanasiou or Zadina or something. I think that would be really good. But then after that, it's a matter of filling out the third and fourth lines and getting rid of these washed up players on awful contracts, and then this team can really start to turn it around hopefully. And obviously we need a lot of help on the blue line, but I feel like a lot of help is on the way in terms of Moritz Seider and the further development of guys like Filip Hronek and Dennis Cholowski. And obviously we need help between the pipes in a big way. We have goaltending prospect Philip Larson, but I'm kind of meh on him. But Steve Yzerman did just go out and acquire Eric Comrie, so maybe he can come in and have like a miraculous story and turn out to be a starter. That would obviously be a massive help for this team, but I don't really see that. Probably going to be like a backup for them. Can't really see him becoming anything more than that, but I think it's a low risk move by Steve Yzerman to bring in a guy who you can try out. But honestly, for the most part, especially over the past month, I've been very disappointed with this team. Basically after our 3-1 start to the season, and that had me really excited. I'm sure if you guys follow me on Twitter, you would know that. But since then, this team has just been absolutely awful. They've been the worst team in the NHL, but that may be a blessing in disguise because we could really use a top 2 pick in Lafreniere or Byfield. But knowing the luck of the Red Wings, we won't get a good draft pick anyway. My hope for this team for the rest of the season is just they become a little bit more fun to watch. We put Filip Zadina in a more prominent role to succeed, and we just continue to see development of guys like Anthony Mantha, Bertuzzi, Larkin, Filip Hronek, and Chalowski in those players. And who knows, maybe if when the season is really lost and we have some, openings on the blue line, we could call up Moritz Seider and give him a look, but I fully expect them to be very patient with him. So that's basically going to do it for this video. Like I said at the start, if you want to see more videos like this where I kind of just sit back and give my opinion on something, make sure to let me know down in the comment section. And if you're a Red Wings fan like me, make sure to let me know your thoughts on this season so far, even though I kind of feel like I already know what you guys are going to say. And man, this season it's just been super tough to watch this team, and it just really makes me miss Zetterberg and Datsuk.